Hello everyone, Justin with Deep Dive Stocks here, and today we're going to be looking at the settings and setup and getting LDPM and LDPS on your chart. And I'm essentially going to just show you how I set my chart up, the settings I use, the colors, so on and so forth, so that if you want to either become inspired from those settings, you can do so, or that way you have some more tools and understanding under your belt to set up LDPM and LDPS how you want them set up. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing you're probably going to want to do is, actually, can we just let's do a new chart. Well, I kind of wanted to watch Bitcoin on the minute, and that doesn't create a fresh chart anyway. Sorry for the clicking. I'm using this Apple mouse again. It's the loudest thing in the world. Just to watch in the background, we have a Bitcoin on the 1 minute. But okay, so when you finally have access to LDPM and LDPS and liquidity levels and the scanner, you're going to see them under here in your invite onlys. And that's where you can put them onto your chart. You're probably not going to have as many of these liquidity tools as I do, but you should definitely have LDPM, LDPS, the liquidity levels, and the scanner. So once we put LDPM on our chart or LDPS on our chart, the first thing we need to do is actually adjust how the canvas is displayed. To do that, we go to Settings, and the first thing we need to do is uncheck this body, borders, and wick options, because if we add these, which is the default, we can see that the LDPS's coloring is overridden by the standard price-based candles, which now that I've been using LDPS for so long, to me just seems crazy. I think it would be better to just have them not colored at all than with that red-green. I think it gives some really false impressions. But anyway, so once you've unclicked body, borders, and wick, at first there might be nothing showing. And that's because we just need to go to LDPS and go down here to LDPS candle replacement. So this is what actually tells LDPS to color the candles appropriately. So if you get something that looks more like this, after you've unchecked those 3 check marks, just make sure in your LDPS that you have LDPS candle replacement toggled on, and the candle should pop up. Like I said, this is just Bitcoin on the 1 minute for us to watch while we go through some of these settings. With the color scheme, since we're still talking about the canvas, the color I use, if you want, is this guy. I'll put it in the comments below, but it's 101320, and it's a nice dark blue, and I think it just makes a lot of the other colors pop, especially if you have a lot of LDPMs. If you do keep LDPM 1 through 7 on, it can become difficult in light mode to even distinguish, to get that many colors onto a blank white canvas that looks good. So if you don't use dark mode, you can still set the canvas to this nice dark color. Obviously blue is the best color in the world, so definitely recommend using this color, and we can just see that it really gives a nice pop to the colors, because if we do like a white canvas background, we see things become actually pretty muted. But if we go back eagerly to that dark blue color, things look much nicer. In terms of the other settings, there is an additional setting that we need to talk about. If we go to, say, SPY on the 1 minute, just something that trades on sort of normal market hours, there's 2 additional ways that we need to, not need necessarily, maybe need is a strong word, but it is recommended. I think it gives cleaner data into LDPM and LDPS, and that is to make sure that your data modification for your session is always set to extended trading hours, and that the adjust data for dividends is selected. This way, when LDPM and LDPS see these changes in price that might be just simple market mechanics or market structural changes, it doesn't interpret those changes as a consequence of a change in liquidity, but rather it won't even really, with these checked, it won't even need to, cross that bridge because the data will be fed into it in just a more clean way. So we set the extended trading hours and adjust the data for dividends. There is a little bit of an argument for using regular trading hours, although I'm not going to get into it here. Definitely maybe a topic for another video, but I still recommend extended trading hours. If you're doing ES futures or any other kind of futures, there's a similar setting, and that's the electronic trading hours. And then with futures, you just want to do the electronic trading hours, and it's kind of the same, but it's the adjust for contract changes. And again, that kind of just helps give, the data that are being fed into LDPM and LDPS, it just helps make sure that they're clean of any abrupt changes that the LDPM and LDPS underlying algorithms might misinterpret as true changes due to some sort of liquidity change. And then it'll start trying to figure out what's going on there. Once you have all of these set, whatever settings you want, you can always you can save that snapshot of the settings as a default, and then you can choose, if you open a chart, then you can just come down to the templates and choose which one you want. I got a little cheeky and I just renamed it as default, and so now every chart that I open just opens with the default, which are the settings that I chose. So that seemed to work just fine. That way I didn't have to keep reapplying the template every time I wanted to make a new chart. So those are the main settings for your canvas in terms of getting ready. Making sure, just as a quick, super 10-second review, making sure the body, borders, and wick from the symbol is unchecked, and then making sure the electronic trading hours or the extended trading hours and the adjust for contract changes or the adjust for dividends is selected. Other than that, the rest is really up to you. You can change the size of the text if you'd like in one of these buttons. Here, scale is text 40. I have it on the biggest since this is the recording. And you can also change, so you see the crosshairs, and this is just while we're here in the settings, the gold crosshairs, you can change that here if you'd like. And I also add that watermark for what ticker it is and then what time frame. That way everyone is on the same page when I share screenshots and videos. But all of those are definitely optional for you if you choose. So let's go back to Bitcoin just so we can see if there's anything exciting happening. So right now we're at the organic ask and we're still flowing up to the ask, so it looks like movement to LDPM L7 is underway. But let's go back to the settings. So now, LDPM. LDPM by default doesn't have any smoothing. Smoothing can actually be pretty cool. So if we zoom out a little bit, and then I'm not going to go through all the settings, but one of the ones I do enjoy looking at occasionally is the weighted moving average. And it turns LDPM into a much more sort of casual / traditional indicator. It really looks a lot more like your traditional, VWAPs or whatnot. This can be helpful, especially when there's, hold on a second, can give, and I think it does give a not too unchanged view of what's going on while bringing the visuals of the data more in line with a traditional, less chaotic indicator. And I recommend playing around with these to see which ones are your favorite. But I would, if which one do I prefer, will always be the non, which is also, I said non instead of none, but non, maybe I'm hungry. Okay. Jeez. This mouse. All right. The default setup for LDPM is all LDPMs are checked, and I'm gonna film after this video a discussion about what these numbers mean and what these numbers on the side mean, but for now, Let's just be happy with these numbers as they are, and that's that. My personal favorite as recently is leaving LDPM L3, which is 34 on, and along with 5, 6, and 7, which are 144, 377, and 610 in terms of the orders. If you ever see a video or a tweet shared by me with LDPM and LDPS, unless specified otherwise, this is what you're looking at. Occasionally, if there's times where I'm looking for an organic bid and 610 just isn't there, say spot is below 610, adding the higher order LDPMs is definitely always an option as well. So if we add the higher order LDPM here, which was 987, we see we get this, what was once the 8, but now is 987, so LDPM 1 is up here. And what's cool is that we can see here that normally we designate the bear traps as 7, or bull traps rather 6-5 because of the order, but this is LDPM 1. But if we use the LDPM order, not just the numbering for the chart labels, then we get the 987, we get the 677, and then this is a test, 6 is 377, and then 5, there's a lot of 77s here, and I don't think that's right. And then LDPM L5, of course, being 144. But the idea is that the LDPM stack is based off of the order, not necessarily the label on the chart. But it's oftentimes just easier to talk about the label on the chart. You can choose other ways of graphing LDPM if you want. So you can add LDPM granular, which is a feature that some of the more OG members enjoy using. I like it, but because I am not much of a scalper, it's not big in my repertoire that I use that much anymore. And in the next video, I'm also going to discuss why this is the default loadout. But if you don't want the default loadout, if you want to just get rid of the LDPM fibs and you want to graph your own LDPM, you can do so here. So if we want some random number, say 6, I don't know, it's too close to a real number, right? So 715, and we graph it, we should see a purple line here soon. And there we go. Now, the significance of that LDPM value or that LDPM order, don't know. But it is here in case there are times when you do want maybe to split the difference between two defaults up here. And then that would be a perfect time to do it. So say you want an LDPM to split the difference between the 377 and the 610. Say you want something around the 500 mark. Then that's when you would go in here and you would just go ahead and add that LDPM to fit your needs. And there you go. Very nice. Another way that you can use LDPM is time-based. So for instance, if this is the 1 minute chart, but I want to see what the LDPM calculated on the span of the day looks like, is it going to give it to us? Not a very good demonstration if it's not working. Let's pretend that worked. I'll look into it. But you can also do that as well. Another and these LDPMs are actually just based off of these LDPM display LDPM values and statuses, which we see here. And we can see in this box, can I make it bigger? No. Here, let's see if we can make it in the middle center. And it helps a little bit. Maybe we go on something that's not as big as Bitcoin. Just with so many decimal places. Maybe it's not a Bitcoin thing. But the idea is that we can see in this box what the LDPM values are based off of those time frames that we talked about just 5 seconds ago. So if we want to know what the 5 minute, 15 minute, 30 minute, 1 hour, 4 hour, 1 day, 1 week, or 1 month LDPMs look like, we can activate that through this chat, but with this box, this data frame on the chart. So let's move that out of the way again. And you can change the colors based off how you want. So the lighter colors now are bullish. That means spot is above that LDPM. And when in this case with the brighter blue, that means that spot is below LDPM, and so it is bearish. And these are calculated more on the time frames, right? So these don't have anything to do with the LDPM fib loadout. This is just, hey, we're going to look at all the data from the past hour, past 4 hours, day, week, and so on and so forth. And we're going to figure out if it's bullish or bearish. I don't see that used often. It used to be one of the main features back when LDPM was predominantly based on of time. But that'll be a discussion for the next video. So let's put LDPM fibs back on because charts to me look naked without it. Let's auto adjust our chart. It just kind of makes it easier. And then there we go. All right. So that's LDPM. By now, we should be familiar with adding LDPM to our chart, figuring out which type of LDPM smoothing we want, figuring out which type of LDPM layout we want in general, whether it be the fib loadout, the manual, or time-based. And that about sums it up for LDPM. Like I said, I'm going to do a video literally right after this, so don't be surprised by the same chart that discusses what is the relationship between the orders and the actual LDPM values. But lastly, let's look at LDPS. With LDPS, we've already in that canvas setting untoggled the body, wick, and border so that LDPS can color the candles based off of the liquidity status. And other than that, the settings for LDPS are pretty straightforward. The defaults, I do personally have different defaults than what are set as the defaults. And that's what I'll go over here. I'm going to leave the discussion for like the balanced versus aggressive versus diamond and changing time frames for the next video. But for this one, for the settings that I use the LDPS detail amount full. If you use simplified, and we go to here, little box says determines how much detail is reported. Simplified will reduce the additional details, spelled completely incorrectly, into more simplified outputs and color schemes. So the first thing you'll notice on the default with simplified is that there are no variations in the greens and the reds. There's just green, just red. And that's part of that simplified process. So if it's any flavor of bearish, it will just color it as the bearish color that you've chosen. And if it's any flavor of bullish, then it will just color the candle based off of the bullish. And then the text as well will be a little bit more simplified. So I normally change this to full so that I can get a better glimpse of just kind of what's happening behind the scenes. And another thing is the LDPS measurements display that's toggled on by default, but that controls the words. But how the words are expressed or which words are chosen is dependent on the LDPS reporting style. The default is interpretive, which is a more, so if we look at like the super default, simplified and interpretive, we see that things just become bullish / bearish. And since it's simplified, that is essentially all we are going to get from this level of information reporting. And this is a really good layout, and I chose it as the default because it's perfectly fine. There's nothing, you don't always need all of the detail. You don't always need all of the information. Sometimes, just getting a glance at the forest is sufficient to understand the trees. But if and when there are times when more information is needed, or as you become comfortable with LDPS and more information no longer seems like more information or an overload of information, then I move back to declarative and full. And so that's going to give us the full reporting of the data. So now instead of just bullish, we are told exactly where things are transacting, which is at the organic ask. We still always had that flow to ask, but we can see that we have a much wider variety of colors within the reporting. And then again, make sure you have that LDPS candle replacement on. There's other ways of using or having LDPS show us what's going on. So if we, for instance, if you're hard set on using traditional candle coloring, but again, just aesthetically, but you can absolutely do that. Instead of candle replacement, we can do LDPS candle coloring. And that will color the insides of the candles based off of LDPS's coloring. So you'll still get the borders, and I think even the wicks will be the more traditional coloring. As you can see here. So his mouse is going to be the death of me. So we can see we have the insides are colored by LDPS, but we still have the wicks and the border are colored in the more traditional style. Say even that is too much blasphemy for you, candles are always meant to be colored by price change, then you can always do LDPS background coloring. And what that will do is color the background of the chart based off of the liquidity in that moment. You know, essentially you're just swapping out what would be colored, what would color the like the LDPS candle itself is now just coloring the background of the canvas, as we see here. And it, you know, this is pretty. I do like this view occasionally. It's kind of like the liquidity scanner, but on your chart, and only for one setting. But you could stack. These, right? So let's do so, but not my preferred. So I'm going to go back to LDPS candle replacement. I'm going to uncheck this, and then go back to the settings and uncheck the body, borders, and wick, so that I do not lose my mind. And I don't know about you, but it's just so much more aesthetically pleasing. And I'm going to check my notes real quick, make sure I'm not forgetting anything. So we've covered the canvas, the candles, we're going to save the actual meanings of the settings for the next video, but we talked about LDPM's layouts or loadouts with the fib sequence. And we talked about, let's just make sure, the fibs, the smoothing, the adding the granular if you want, adding a manual LDPM if you want, adding a time-based LDPM, and then also adding that the LDPM text, which these two are the same. So if you essentially, for instance, say you activate this and you see that the, you know, in this case, we have this bearish liquidity noted on the 1 day, the 4 hour, and the 1 hour, then that's when you might add for instance, the 1 day onto the chart, and then you can actually get a view for what's going on. But if you just want a generalized view or a generalized picture of what's going on, the LDPM values and statuses box should be fine. I'm also going to go through the code and see if I can fix why there's so many digits there. So there might be a fun little update coming soon. I swear it was not like that before. It was fine on my computer. But so in general, I think that is a good way, a good overview of the settings and a good review of the settings. Oh, excuse me. That was weird. And yeah, so I think that's a decent review of the settings, and in particular, with a little bit of emphasis on how I set things up myself. I will put the canvas color in the description below if you would like to use it. Again, I recommend. I just think it's super. Not only is it super, like what a double, you know, is double whammy is usually bad, but you know, what a double inverse whammy where you get something that is just super aesthetically pleasing and it's actual true grade alpha, and it's alpha in a way that no one has really measured alpha in the market before. Otherwise, you'd be seeing this type of chart everywhere, and you haven't, because I'm the one who made it. And I definitely recommend you try it out. So, all right, I'm going to leave the settings review here. If there's anything that I didn't cover, put it in the comments. I'll make another video, or send me an email, reach out to me on Twitter, and I'll see if I can help with your inquiries. Otherwise, I will see you guys next time, which for me is about to be in 30 seconds as I film the next video. But for you, maybe also in 30 seconds when you click on the next video. But all right, guys, I'll see you guys next time. Adios.